Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedly, and you are listening to Reading with Your Kids, broadcasting from the vibrant and book-loving neighborhood of Reedville in beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. This is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. Our mission is to help families grow stronger, closer, and kinder through the magic of reading together. And we are thrilled to have you with us on that journey. Help us spread the joy by sharing the podcast with the people you love. Tell your kids, teachers, school librarians, and neighbors that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, wherever you find your favorite shows. That's right, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have two amazing guests coming to you today. First up, Isabella Kung is here to celebrate Nunu and the sea. And later in the show, we have a very powerful conversation with author Anesa Kajtazovic. She's here to celebrate her debut picture book, Anesa No Scola Today, based on her experience growing up in a refugee camp. I want to let you know that this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Once Upon a Dance. OnceUponADance.com. Are you looking for a magical way to get your kids moving? Once Upon a Dance brings stories to life with interactive books that inspire little ones to read, move, and imagine. Award-winning and teacher-approved, these whimsical tales are perfect for classroom, story time, or family fun. Spark joy, build confidence, and dance into imagination. Head on over to OnceUponADance.com and discover all the fun you and your kids can have moving and grooving together to the stories you'll find at OnceUponADance.com. Hey families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. My friends, we are about to have a fantastic conversation with the author and illustrator of a great new picture book called Nunu and the Sea. Please welcome to the show, Isabella Kung. Hey, Isabella, how are you?
Hi, Jed. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Delighted to have you on. Isabella was so kind. She introduced me to her cat, and I'm able to look into her space, and there's this giant cat tower that I'm imagining that your cat just loves playing on.
Yeah, she's the queen. That's her throne, and a great place to be my studio mate and accompany me while I make my books.
That's great. Yeah, you know, we talk about the fact that writing and illustrating can be a very solitary profession, and I think it's kind of healthy having somebody that's quiet to join you in your space.
Yes, definitely. And through long hours, especially the illustrating part, you know, sometimes, especially around the final art, you just go for months on end and you're just churning out artwork. And I'm a night owl too, so
Okay.
night when it's quiet, which is very important for just getting into the flow and working. It's nice to have a companion along the way. Yeah.
Cool. My beautiful wife, who retired from teaching a couple of years ago, has taken up watercoloring and drawing, and she's taking some classes, and it just brings her so much joy. And she'll oftentimes will come out on a weekend, and I'll ask her if she wants to do anything. She goes, "No, I'm going to work on this painting," and she'll be there for 12 hours, and she'll come out and apologize. "Oh, I'm sorry we didn't go." Baby, you are happy? I'm fine.
Yeah. what a great supportive partner, and I'm really grateful for my partner to be supportive in that regard too. It does take so long. I lose sense of time when I'm in the flow, and it's music to my ears to hear your wife is enjoying watercolor. That is one of my favorite mediums.
Yeah, she really does. And it's fun. But you might have some advice for me. She always comes out and she'll ask me, and very oftentimes I won't have my glasses on, and she'll say, okay, tell me what this is. And I can barely see the paper, never mind figuring out what she drew. And then if I say, well, it's a apple, and it's a pear, then she gets very upset with me.
Oh.
I'm like, I don't have my glasses on.
Well, I guess advice-wise, so first just name your needs. You do need your glasses, so just tell her to wait 1 second while you get your glasses. My husband too, as well. He needs his reading glasses. So I used to get quite upset at him, but I eventually, even on like details around the house or cleaning and stuff, until I realized I really just don't think he can see those things. There's no use for me to get mad at him about it. So now I just ask him like, can you see? Do you need your glasses? And then next is like, if you can't really figure out what she's actually trying to depict, maybe just name like what you love about certain aspects of it. Maybe you love the color transition somewhere, the texture somewhere, and you can just be honest, say like, I can't really tell exactly the object you're depicting, but I still love it. Can you tell me more what you're trying to do? And then
all right,
how she describes it.
I like that. I love that. She does have a very interesting choice of I guess palettes, colors, and there's very oftentimes that is one of the things I'll say is I really love this color here. So I'm thank you. I'm going to use this. This could be the most valuable episode of the podcast.
Yeah, I love that, and yay to partnership and marriage and better communication, and I agree too. Like every artist don't always go with realism as an expression, so. Yeah, it's okay if you can't figure out like if she's trying to do an apple or a pear. I think that's her way of expressing it, and I love that you're celebrating that.
Absolutely. So let's celebrate Nunu in the sea. Who are we going to meet in this book?
And we're meeting this little Asian girl who has a big emotional episode and journey that turns into a fantastical journey. And it's a story that is very near and dear to my heart, and I drew a lot of inspiration from my own childhood. And after the whole book is done, like it dawned on me, like this is kind of a love letter to my own inner child, especially after naming her as my childhood or current, it's still current family nickname for me. So Nunu is the part of my Chinese name. The first character is Nam in Cantonese, but in Shanghainese it's pronounced Nu, which it means south, and because I was born in Hong Kong, which is south of China. So when my editor suggested me to switch to a third person and we needed to give the character a name, this happened to be the one we chose. And yeah, the full circle at moment when I realized at the end it is for my inner child a bit. So
I love that. That's wonderful. So neat that here you are pouring and doing all this work on the words and on the illustration, and it wasn't until it was finished that you realized, oh, this is about me.
Well, yeah, like to that extent. Like I always had an inkling it is inspired by me and my own journeys, and I have to live it in order to tell it with such heart and intimacy. But yeah, the ending there when I wrapped up the project is especially sweet.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about those big emotions and that journey.
Yes. I guess what would you like to know? Is it my intentions or how the emotional journey first inspired me to start the story?
Let's go with that. How it inspired you to start.
Okay, so I think when the idea first came to me, it was maybe all the way back in 2018, almost 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to tell my students or whenever I give talks that like inspiration, it really can just come from anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's words or images. Like my first book came as a character. Not the story wasn't even there yet, but, and then the second book came with like just words of a dialogue between the characters. And for Nunu, it actually just came as one single vision, which is in the middle of the story. There's one spread of Nunu in her origami boat, and in just a vast, boundless ocean that there's nothing else around, but it's beautiful. So that was happening during a moment in my career where I felt especially lost. I was kind of, at that time I quit teaching for a little bit to really focus on honing my skills as a writer. That part came later in my life. I went to school for illustration and really trying to submit, and I finally queried, got a literary agent, and that might be a story for a different moment, but it turns out to be a schmagent, and my work actually didn't get seen for the 2 years I was with this literary agent. So, but I didn't know at that time. I was just filled with so much self-doubt and imposter syndrome, wondering if I should just stick back in illustration, and it just dawned on me in a moment, because it was a meditation prompt to envision yourself on a boat, and what's your surrounding look like? Is the boat tethered? Those were the prompts. And the yoga teacher had other intentions for the meditation, but ultimately that was the vision that I had. Like it felt like a moment where I'm exhausted. I just been through a big storm, but there's that lull after a big emotional episode that you're just tired. You don't know how to move forward. And you just want to linger there, but deep down there's nothing there for you, and you do have to move forward. So it's that one little single moment, and that inspired me to really think about, the ocean and water as that metaphor, analogy for emotions, and that happens throughout history, throughout culture. We use water related words to describe emotion, like drowning in sorrow or treading water, or like lots of those analogies. And then and even art, like the famous Japanese screen print wave screen print was like one of the big inspirations too. So I started to think about the arc of a storm, which really feels similar to the arc of an emotional journey. There's that intense period at the beginning, the rupture, and then the slowly softening to that low moment that I just described, and then back to, maybe sunny, happier weather and moments. So that's kind of how it all started. Thank you for asking.
Oh, that's so neat. I love that idea of you being in a yoga class and getting this meditation idea, and then just, I'm imagining myself when I get ideas, it's like, oh, this is great, and I can't wait to start putting this together and see where it takes me. What a special moment. Now, did anybody in the class, were they able to tell that you were having this genius moment?
No, not at all. This was very, very internal a moment. And honestly, I didn't even really play. I think I played with that idea for a little bit that year, but then luckily, a couple months later, I got a new literary agent, and I got my first official debut book deal for writing and illustrating. So I got busy for a long time. I really didn't start developing it until the pandemic.
Uh-huh.
And that's probably 3 or 4 years in between that about 2 or 3 years, maybe not that long. And I remember very strongly, because I remember listening to one of your episodes, you mentioned reading Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yes.
And I love that book, and I really love the way she describes inspiration as muses, that if you ignore them long enough, they'll go away somewhere else and find a different creator to tell this story. So that's when I started to hit the panic moment. Like, I gotta work on, like, please don't leave me. I gotta work on this idea. Yeah, it took a while.
I think I've shared this story. I was when trying to figure out how to make a living as a performer, and I was working in a school for kids with severe developmental disabilities, and we started this program where they were integrated into typical situations, and part of the grant that we used called for us to make a video to show and to inspire other schools to follow us. And I somehow convinced the people in the program to allow me to use my clown character and to make a kids video. And when they said yes, they said, well, what's the story going to be? And I'm like, I'm not quite sure yet. But I went to a concert, and the band was UB40, and I think they might have been playing Red, Red Wine at the time. But the whole show came right before my eyes. And it just played out in front of me, and I'm listening to music, I'm grooving, but I'm seeing the show, and I'm loving it, and I'm like, and so I got home, and I said, I gotta write this down. This is way before computers. And I got in the house, and there was a power outage, so I had to light candles, and I'm writing the thing out by hand, by candlelight, and I was so afraid I was going to lose it, that it was just going to go away. But it didn't, thankfully, and we made a nice video.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. And it's so cool you got the inspiration while experiencing another art piece and in a different concert. That is beautiful. Yeah. And it's so, I mean, probably not in the moment, but hearing it feels so romantic that you're writing these ideas down by candlelight.
Well, yeah, I didn't think it was romantic at the time. So are you ever, when you're in a museum or in a gallery, are you ever inspired by a piece of art that you might see?
Yes, of course. There's so many, but I think these might not have like direct results that I can name. Like I'm sure you feel the same way. Like a lot of these inspirations you kind of collect in the back of your brain and think about, and like maybe your subconscious work with it for a long time for it to develop something of our own. Mm-hmm. But yeah, many beautiful art pieces, and mostly they probably inspire more of my illustrative side and how to create and paint visually instead of thinking about story. I think I gain more inspiration about writing and developing story through books and through living and through experiences that way, because I think art, I end up putting on my own analytical lens and like figuring out, oh, how did they do that? Why does this piece look so good? Like what are the composition elements that really drew me to this? Or like how are the paint being applied, and what are the textures? Like I end up putting on that lens more. So I think that those are the kinds of inspirations I get from museums.
I like that. Do you consider yourself an illustrator who is also an author who is also an illustrator? Or are you at the point where it's like, oh, I'm an author illustrator, I'm a little bit of both?
I'm finally at the point of a little bit of both. But for a long time, I say like, I'm an illustrator. But that likes writing and needs improvement, and I'm so glad to work with editors. But yeah, I feel a lot more confident in my own abilities and instincts these days. I'm very, very grateful for that.
Now, I know you've also illustrated for other authors. What was it like the first job or the first book you were to illustrate, when somebody, an editor or an art director, handed you a manuscript and said, okay, I want you to tell the other half of this story with your illustrations?
My first one, I guess my first one, I have to really roll back. I was looking back, I'm pretty ballsy. I was only like halfway through art school. I picked up a freelance job working with a author. It wasn't through a established publisher or imprint. And I just really wanted the experience. I fell in love with children's book illustration. I went to my degree was in traditional illustration, so I knew I wanted to be an illustrator. But what format, what genre, and what field? So around that time, I dawned on me, children's book is the way to go. Like, what else format gives you 50% of the space to tell your story through your art, and what other genre would celebrate traditional mediums that much? So, and again, I love stories. Like, I found that calling, and it was really exciting. But it was such a learning curve, because I actually at that time didn't even take a children's book course yet. I just knew I liked telling stories, and I knew I can do narrative illustration. I was really grateful to have mentors at that time to guide me, even though I wasn't even in their courses. I learned a lot. Please don't look it up, because I'm ashamed of the work I created so many years ago. I mean, I'm not ashamed. I'm never ashamed. A little embarrassed, maybe, because I was still, undeveloped at that time as a creator. And it's called Baby Steps. And I believe the author's name is Shelley something. But it was really, really cool to play with her words and develop it in the way I think is the best for the story and see the result of it. But I think the real fun came after, when I finally got jobs working with educational publishers. That was my first part of my career, then eventually to trade publishers. That's, where all the creative freedom really comes in, and I really got to express myself.
Awesome. Yeah. We recently had James Ransom on the podcast, and he was here to celebrate, and he does everything. He does studio art and illustrates other people's books. And he created a book. It's called A Place for Us, that has no words. It just tells a story through illustration. Is that something you think you might want to tackle at some point?
Oh my God, how timely. I love wordless picture books. Like, one of my earliest inspirations were David Weisner's books. Tuesday, what else do I have here? The Three Pigs. I love wordless picture books. And honestly, Nunu and the Sea was originally submitted as a wordless picture book.
Really?
And I at that time during the submission, I think about 70% of the artwork was pretty much already designed and set, as the dummy to submit. When I got acquired by Knopf Books for Young Reader, and my lovely editor, Esther, I'm gonna butcher her last name. I feel bad, Esther. Please don't hate me. Kaja, I'm just.
It's Esther K. I know Esther K. No worry.
Her last name starts with an E, though.
Oh.
Juan Ringa, maybe. Hopefully I pronounced it right. I'm really bad with pronunciation on names. But yeah, she had the wherewithal to suggest sparse text. And in the conversation, and I'm learning so much from her, really, I asked her, like, since we're all really enthusiastic and love wordless picture book, why in this instance you would like to suggest sparse text? And the way she explained it made total sense. Like, a lot of the wordless picture book is a little bit more action driven, maybe, that you can read the story a little bit more from the illustration. But since this story, my story in particular, is such an internal journey, and some kids so smart from the get-go, such a emotional intelligence and awareness from really early age, and they don't need words, but some kids might need a little help. So having sparse text will really help those kids to really understand their own emotional journey and understand the story of this book. And also, like, logistically too, it's helpful for adults to try to read too, because that is one hurdle that wordless picture books sometimes have to go through, is sometimes adults have trouble reading these stories to kids. So that was the two main reasons she pointed out. And I really agree. Like, yeah, some kids might need some help. And my goal is to hopefully let kids know that their emotions are so human and so natural, and don't be afraid of it, even though it's scary, and it will pass. And it's actually, emotions are wonderful informants about who we are and what we need and what we desire and all that good stuff.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that we encourage families to do a lot of times is to take, before they read a picture book, is to take a picture walk through a book and maybe cover up the text and just go through the pictures, take a walk through the pictures, and talk about what do you think is happening on this page. And that sounds like Nunu and the Sea sounds like a perfect book for a picture walk.
Oh, I love that idea. I'm going to try that sometime when I encounter a lovely child and try to let them tell me the story before I read it to them. Yeah. Thanks for that.
How have you fallen in love with being in front of an audience, reading your books and showing your pictures yet?
Yes. Oh my God. Especially if they're children. I love them so much. Adults, I like it too, but I think I've become more like, okay, I need to be a teacher. That performance lens kind of come in a little bit more. But for kids, yeah, it's just such a gift to be able to enjoy their reactions to the book, and there's such great audience, so enthusiastic. And I'm lucky that my first two books are humor books and about cats, and I encourage them to scream with me. And oh my God, boy, do they love screaming! It's very deafening. So I get a lot of joy from that. It will be interesting this time when Nunu comes out to read a quieter book.
Yeah.
And see how they react from that. But yeah, I'm curious. I'm very curious when that happens.
Well, you're going to have to report back how that went for you, because I'm also very curious as to how that's going to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you? I'm sure you have, with your extensive career and experience, read more quieter, emotional books?
Well, I don't. I go out and I'm performing either as a clown or a magician, but I do tell stories, and my shows were always educationally based. So we're trying to get kids to be respectful, and so there are definitely stories that required a quiet tone, and also, funny enough, getting quiet as a performer is a great way to get control of the kids back. If the kids kind of get real excited and they're noisy and you need to get them back on time, sometimes the best thing to do is just go out there and start to whisper, because the kids are so excited. They really want to know what you're going to do next. But if they're talking and I'm whispering, they can't hear. And it's a really sneaky little trick, but it works so well.
Wow, thank you so much for telling me. That's such a good tip. I need to use that. Thank you.
Awesome. And here's another tip I'm happy to share. I love starting a show and I don't want to be introduced. I just want to walk out. And one of the things I'll do is if there's an especially excited audience, I'll go out and I'll say, hi. And then I'll stop as the kids, because the kids stop and they want to hear. And I go, oh my goodness. And I'll look to a teacher. Did you just see what happened? Here I am. Most places I go to at the start of the show, teachers have to run around going, shh, quiet, quiet. But here at this school, I just said hello and you guys got quiet and you showed me respect. This is going to be the greatest show ever. So you're starting off giving them props, and it's wonderful.
Oh, I love that. That is such a good tip. And boost them up immediately and make them want to hear more.
Yep.
Such a good tip. Thank you. I need to write this down.
All right. Well, before you write it down, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Nunu and the Sea.
You can find out more on my website, isabellakung.com, and that my last name is spelled Kung. Caveat though, I do need to update my website, so it might be a little easier to find all the new links, the pre-order links, and soon I'm gonna announce my launch party for it too on my Instagram, and my handle is at Isabella Kung Ill. That is ISABELLA KUNGILL.
Awesome. We've had a really fun time speaking to the author and illustrator of Nunu and the Sea. Our guest has been Isabella Kung. Hey, my friend, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much, Jed, for having me. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Well, I'll let you know that this episode of Reading with Your Kids is also brought to you by We're Going on a Space Adventure, written by Marie Nichols. This is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Blasting off and speeding through space, Graham cheers to the moon and beyond. But Bracken quickly learns that Graham has a fear of flying and that he must manage control of the spaceship. On the moon, they narrowly escape a hideous monster as a crater explodes, and on Mars, they need to outrun Martian creatures or risk becoming their dinner. Hoping to find a friendlier planet, they decide to try Jupiter. Then clank, 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 something is attacking the spaceship. You and your kids are going to love this book. It's fun. It's exciting. It celebrates intergenerational friendships, and we love those. We're Going on a Space Adventure by Marie Nichols. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read.
Hi, I'm Ashley, a first-time author who loves turning real animals into big adventures for our littles.
And I'm Michael, a scientist, international educator, and textbook author. Ashley and I have teamed up to bring the wildlife believes right into your hands.
Kids will meet real animals like jaguars and tapirs and learn about the struggles they face in the wild. With artwork by local student illustrators, these animals truly come to life for your kids.
And for teachers, we built K-5 toolkits to make it easy to integrate these books into the classroom, all with age-appropriate activities that connect literacy, science, and wildlife conservation.
You can learn more at ashleymosley.com or inspiredventures.com. Let's keep the adventure going.
I'm feeling we are in for a very fun and powerful conversation. Our guest is here today to celebrate. Her new picture book is called Anesa Kajtazovic today. Please welcome to the show, Anesa Kajtazovic. Did I get it right?
Close enough, Jed.
Anesa, thanks for being here on Reading with Your Kids. And tell everybody how you pronounce your last name.
It's Kajtazovic.
Kajtazovic. Why couldn't I say that? My goodness. Kajtazovic. And this story is based on you and your life.
Yes, it's based on my childhood. It starts when I was 7 years old, when my life, as we know it, changed. I had a beautiful, normal childhood that was filled with birthday parties, going to school, playing with your friends, your toys, watching your favorite cartoons. And then one day, war came to our doorsteps, and my life changed forever.
I don't think, and please feel free to say I don't want to talk about that, but can you just kind of, because I think, we can think, oh, that would be terrible, but I don't think many of us actually can imagine what's that like. Waking up one morning, I think in the notes I saw that you were celebrating your birthday and excited to go to school, and your dad had to go off to war, and boom, life changes.
Mm-hmm. And that's how we ended up as refugees. And so we endured 3 years of war in refugee camps in Croatia. But that's exactly, you have a good point there. It's difficult to imagine this happening. And that's why I wrote this book. It actually is a journey that I never expected to go on or to tell this story. It started 5 years ago when an educator approached my friend wanting some resources about forced migration and the Bosnian War, because there are a lot of Bosnian or former Bosnian refugees in our in Iowa communities, over 20,000. And so he approached me asking for some resources and if I would be willing to help. And at first I declined, and it's not because I didn't want to, it's because I didn't know how to talk to children, especially third graders, about what happened to me and thousands of others in Iowa and across the country, and really millions on a world scale. And but then, like I said, this was 5 years ago, and COVID had just happened. And I had some time to reflect, and I had a huge sense of guilt because I believe education is how we make an impact, and it's the only thing that can really change the world at the end of the day. And so that's when I first picked up my pen and I started finding words to what happened. And that's how this evolved. It was a 5-year process. And here we are with a book that's just received an award from Reader's Favorite in the children's nonfiction section, and also a 5-star review. But it's really a story of millions of others that go through this journey, and how it happens, and how, what can we learn from that?
So please remind everybody about that war and what were people fighting for? It was a civil war, correct?
It was right after the breakup of Yugoslavia led to these conflicts in Bosnia and Croatia as well. But my book is not about politics of it. I think that's what makes it so unique. It's simply on what it's like for a kid. So it walks you through how everything was normal. And literally having a birthday party, receiving a gift, which was a dog, one of the most beautiful and most memorable moments of my life, that still to this day I carry that loss with me. And just how war happened. It happened out of nowhere. And 5 years ago when I started this, I never imagined that Europe would have another major war, now in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And I'll share with you a little bit later my nod to Ukraine in this book. There was one line that I changed when that happened, even though I was almost done with the book at that point. But it walks, I think anyone should be able to put themselves in her shoes. And that's what the feedback has been so far, is it's making an impact not just on children, but also adults. Makes it easy to understand such a traumatic event. How it can take everything away from you, but also the resilience and the humanity in all of it.
Mm-hmm. You're mentioning that adults are able to take away things from this. We are living in a time right now here in the United States where I've heard people say this is the most divided the country has ever been. I don't know if that's true. But certainly we're hearing a lot of people that are unable to have a conversation and agree to disagree. And what things should we learn as adults about being able to communicate and share different perspectives without feeling the need to hate someone?
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. And division, and that's what happened with the Bosnian War as well. It was a terrible war, so much division, and so many lives were lost. And so with this, I think what we can take away is simply to put ourselves in someone's situation, to see yourself in this little girl's life, to see yourself in someone else's shoes. So I was very careful, and when I talk about here who, the bad guys are, because when you're a kid, you don't understand, the political side of anything, what's happening, who's fighting who, because there were so many sides fighting each other in our war. But you simply talk about the emotions. And it's really appealing to the emotions and touching people's hearts. I think that's what we can learn from it, is really digging deep into our hearts. What do we want the world to be like? Let's stop the blame. Let's not go down that path, but let's simply recognize the shared values that we have. And here in this book, I show that, it's not just a story of loss and displacement, but it's also about the human spirit, about courage and strength. And nobody wants something terrible to happen to them. Nobody wants to be forced out of their home, for example. whether it's a kid in a war zone or here in America that, maybe just went to, a wildfire just happened, for example, and we saw what that did earlier this year in California. So it's simply about shared humanity. And I think at the end of the day, when we think about what do we want the world to look like, what do we want it? And blaming each other is not going to get us there, but understanding each other and having empathy and compassion will.
Yeah, I love that. What a great message to share with kids. Blaming each other is not going to make things better, but understanding each other can.
Absolutely. And that's why also with my this book, I actually had the chance a couple of years ago to go back to that same school, and the teacher that originally invited me to speak to her classroom, I did go back. I had a PowerPoint and I shared a lot of the photos, and the kids loved it. And I just took them through the story. And of course, the number one thing that they all asked at the end was, what happened to Bobby? That was my dog. And when I had to say goodbye to my dog. And so there's also a scene in here that I talk about having to, when my mom told me we have to be prepared to run in case the war comes to our doorstep. So we had to prepare a bag, just a backpack. And I had to sneak in a couple of my clothes and 4 toys. And they all, laugh and chuckle, but that's the only reason I still have a couple of those items from my childhood today, is because I had to hide it from my mom in that backpack. So I talk about, those moments that we all cherish and those memories and what defines a childhood and how it can get disrupted by these outside forces that we know are still happening today.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier that you changed a part of the book as a salute to the people in Ukraine. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So so when the Ukrainian war happened, obviously I started this 5 years ago, so this was before then. But as it happened, I was basically done with my book. I was working on the last few illustrations, but I heard early on in the war there were a lot of protests in Russia and parts of Europe. And I remember hearing some of them in Russia chant mir. And that means, and I go to Google mir. Is that the same word as on Bosnian, meaning peace? And it was. As you know, it's, Russian and Bosnian, Serbo-Croatian, it's a Slavic language. Mm-hmm. So there are some similar words, but I didn't know that was one of them. So I went back and I changed it here in this line. It says, this is as they find safety. And they're going on a truck, and then Tata means dad is explaining, and he says, in the United Nations refugee camp, good people will help us. There everybody works together for mir, peace. It's a place of mir with the help we need. And that was my nod to the war. Ever since the 90s, I never thought Europe would have another major war on its soil, and here we are today. And I also, when I started writing this, I struggled with understanding, would this be relevant in today's world? And I just can't believe how sad it is that we do have more wars today than we did 5 years ago.
It's incredibly sad, and I think people would be really shocked to hear that. We hear about Ukraine, we hear about the Middle East, but there are wars going on all over the world, and
yes.
I hopefully people will become more aware of everything and kind of dig deeper and not just live by the headline or the soundbite.
Exactly. That's what I hope so too. And to open that conversation, for example, about war, but what it's like to be a refugee, who's a refugee. People are sometimes shocked when I tell them we have over 40 million people who are refugees right now. I think last statistic was 43 million. And half of those are children, actually. And so I also worked with a professional, and we have developed a teacher's guide to help facilitate these conversations with students in their classrooms. And it could be in libraries, it could be right at home for parents if they wanted to have that resource.
Talk a little bit. I belong to a group called Clowns Without Borders, and Clowns Without Borders, they have different chapters around the world. They send clowns to refugee camps and disaster areas and to other people who've been internally displaced. I have toured El Salvador to bring some joy to people who had been internally displaced and affected by violence for decades. I haven't toured and brought my magic and laughter to a refugee camp. Can you talk just a little bit about what it's like growing up for a few years in a refugee camp?
Yes, and so this book basically leads you to what it's like, how you become a refugee. Then if I was fortunate enough to write a second book, I would love to focus on just the refugee experience itself, because that was very traumatic, very challenging. And I can share with you one of the stories. When the first camp we arrived to, the first 5 days, there was no food. So what you had maybe in a backpack, like some crackers, or, maybe if you're a baby, if your parents were lucky enough to get some baby formula, but there really wasn't anything else. And then on the 5th day, UN trucks started rolling in. And it was, of course, everyone's happy, but with such a huge need, they had to address the most urgent needs. Who would they help first? Who do they feed? And their priority was children under the age of 5 and the elderly. And I was 7, but my sister was 2.5 years old. And so they, the little kids go in the line over, on one side, and we're waiting on the other side. And my sister goes in that line, she gets her food, and she comes over to my parents, where I was standing next to my parents, and she just shoves it in my hands, like this little package. And they're just speechless, and she runs off again in that line. And we're just, standing just speechless, and my parents, very much law-abiding, rule-abiding people, are just shocked. They didn't say anything, and she went back in that line, and she came back later again with a meal for herself. So they didn't notice there were so many other little kiddos. They didn't know that she already got one meal for herself. Mm-hmm. And so when I tell people refugee camps is not a place that anybody ever dreams of or could ever imagine going to, where you might not have food, you might not have shelter, nothing. That first camp, we were staying in what used to be like an old abandoned factory. And then weeks later, UN also brought us tents. And so you were lucky if you got one of those white tents, and maybe some more extra blankets and whatnot, so you could have that. That was basically considered a luxury at the camp, because in being in a factory, it was the floors were very cold. And you would, So anyways, so that's what it's like. You really are, it humbles you to your core, and how a person can go from basically having everything to ending up on a cold concrete floor with really nothing but a little bag of clothes. And I had this one yellow teddy bear as well. That's also in the illustrated photos here. So anytime you hear the word refugee, I hope people, and that's what I want kids to know, I hope they understand nobody chooses to become a refugee, and know that they are strong people. They are normal people that, had normal lives once upon a time, had everything just like you did. And those refugee children are normal children, just like every kid here in America that loves their toys, loves birthday parties, playing with their friends, going to school, watching their favorite cartoons, or maybe now playing video games, this new generation. They're normal. And I want to show that human side of refugee children and the children that go through war.
Yeah. One of the things that I would hope that I would have the thought to do if I was reading this to my kids would be to tell my kids and remind my kids that Anesa and kids all around the world who find themselves in refugee camps, they're not just kids, they're not just refugees. We have to think about them as our brothers and sisters.
Absolutely. Yes, and this book, that's something else I wanted to do, is bring it, everything is based on, just how it happened, walks you through a normal life, and I wanted to humanize this. So what I did is I included real life photos at the end of the book, and every single illustration in this book is based on real life, from every little detail, from clothes through the toys. I mean, just everything. And I have some of those images at the end so kids can picture this. So it's easy. Oh, I guess you can't see it now on the screen, but it's easy to be able to relate to her. So I notice most of my photos are from birthday parties. You know, I only have one photo of my dog, but still something that they can see that this was a real life, a real person, a real experience of just growing up in a normal neighborhood, normal home that was all disrupted because of war.
Yeah. I'm imagining there might be a parent out there that's listening and is kind of spellbound by your story, but might be saying, why do I want my kid to read a book about a 7-year-old who is forced into a refugee camp by war?
Oh, I can totally understand that. That's why I made it so relevant, that simply walks them through, makes it so relatable that anyone can understand and relate to having to say goodbye to somebody or something in their life. You know, whether it's their dog, maybe at some point they had to say goodbye. Maybe it's a grandparent, a friend that moved away from them. In addition, kids know that there are conflicts happening in the world. They know there's something happening. The chances of them perhaps meeting a former refugee in their classroom or maybe as a neighbor or a coworker are very high. So it's about simply understanding their neighbors, maybe other kids in their school who have gone through something traumatic, something that might seem on the outside, it's very different from their experience. Sure, you did not go through war or go to a refugee camp, but kids want to understand. They want to know what goes around them. Mm-hmm. And I know when I went to that classroom and I did some exercises and, even talk about how many refugees we have. And they were, every single one of them was listening. There were so many hands up in the air to, take a guess at some of the questions and just engage them in this conversation. I think we owe it to children to talk about the world around them, and they're very smart and curious, and we should be able to share that curiosity with them.
Yeah, you mentioned it's again 43 million refugees right now. That's shocking. But one of the things I've noticed, I've had the opportunity here on Reading with Your Kids to interview a number of people who spent a significant amount of time in refugee camps, and they're from different parts of the world, different conflicts, mm-hmm. but they all share one thing. Like you're here, you became, I think, the youngest person to be elected as a state representative in Iowa. They all have tremendous resiliency and a positive attitude. How do you find that resiliency amongst all that sorrow and suffering?
For me, I never, when I came to America, I have to tell you, I was 10 years old and I was so happy. Like, I was just so happy. And it's little things like, having ice cream on demand. You can just go and buy ice cream just being able to watch TV normally again, being able to go to school without, any disruption because my elementary education was disrupted so much. And so for me, I was so excited and happy. I never really had the time to think about what happened back then and to truly reflect on that until, like I said, 5 years ago when I started this process. And I guess that's sometimes very common even amongst veterans. I've, volunteered with the local museum, and so I've heard those stories before. But you just find joy in being able to do things that you didn't have a chance to do for a while. Mm-hmm. There's something so beautiful about life that we sometimes can easily take for granted. And that's why I think it's so important that we teach history to children. And being a refugee or one becoming a refugee surviving a war is an important part of history. It teaches them empathy. It's about being able to reflect on some of these events that happen in human history. And that's how we can grow and understand and instill compassion in our communities, in our classrooms.
Yeah. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Anesa Noskola today and more about you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. You can go on my website. It's anesakajtazovic.com, and I'll spell it out for you. It's ANESAKajtazovic. I also have my book available on Amazon. I'm also on social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So reach out if you're interested in learning more or perhaps having it in your classroom. I'd be happy to connect.
Anesa, thank you so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are so very glad that you spent part of your day with us here at Reading with Your Kids. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please pass it on. Share the link, leave a 5-star review, and hit that subscribe button so you can join us for the next exciting episode of the show. We'd love for you to check us out on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at JedleyMagic on X. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website is readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Isabella Kung. Please be sure to check out Nunu and the Sea. And Anesa Kajtazovic. Please be sure to check out Anesa Noskola today. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. And most of all, we want to give a big, heartfelt thanks to you. You are helping to shape a kinder, smarter, more empathetic world every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.